there in chapter 14, but um, and it goes quite far. So I thought to start with kind of go ahead and so we get an overview of the whole Leela as it progresses. So you can think about so that if you start with chapter 14, and I'll just say a few things, but later I think we read a lot. The story of King Vena. So in Vena was in one some kind of the way the father of Prithu, quite mysterious. He was a son of a king, a very good king, devotee, but Venu was very demoniac from childhood. He was a terrible child. He would just kill animals. He'd even kill his playmates. And the father was so frustrated, thinking, why would this happen to me? I have such a terrible child. And finally, the father just realized that this is mercy, that I have such a terrible child. I can't become attached to enjoying my family life. And he just left without telling anyone. Uh, and they couldn't find him. They searched the whole planet. And then they needed a king because without a king, the thieves and rogues make trouble. So they made this Vena the king, but he was just so bad. The only good thing was that he was the thieves and rogues all ran away because he'd killed them all. Then, so the he finally got so bad that he made a law that he couldn't worship Vishnu, only him. He was the Nara Devata is the proper term, actually. The king is a god on earth. So he said you have to just worship him. And the Brahmanas kept warning him that you can't do this, but he did it anyway. So finally, the Brahmanas just got together and by mantra, they killed him. And they preserved his body. And by mystic power, they churned the body. I don't know how they do that. And first out came a very nasty forest type person. And all the bad qualities of Vena were purified by that person coming out. And then Prithu Maharaj was born. But we have a chapter of his appearance and coronation. And he didn't take birth as a child, he just came out as an adult. So there's um, chapter 16, praises of King Prithu by the professional reciters. And they're praising him in so many ways. He's actually a Shaktivesa avatar. Then he becomes angry at the earth. The earth was withholding the seeds and they weren't growing grains to feed the people. And he was angry. And she argued with him that the people were sinful and they didn't deserve to have any good food. But he said, as the king, it's his duty to feed everybody. And if she didn't, let the things produce, then he would kill her. She said, then how, where will everybody live? He said, I don't need you. I'm God. Then he milked the Earth planet. That's symbolic, but took out all the things for all the different types of people. Then he tried to do 100 horse sacrifices, uh, which is a lot. Indra had done 100, and therefore he got the job of Indra. So when he got up to 99, Indra panicked and thought to stop it. So Indra kept disguising himself and stealing the sacrificial horse. And then, but they chased after Indra, and he would disguise himself as different kinds of sannyasis. He actually created bogus sannyasis, and then they didn't kill him because it was Indra. And finally, Vishnu had to come, and they became friends. And he told Prithu, "You don't have to do 100. Be happy with 99." So Indra doesn't have to worry about losing his position. So we see that is still going on. We want to hold on to our positions, whatever they are. Many people like that. They don't create a succession, and they're always afraid of competition. Politicians find ways to either kill their competitors or just make them give such bad publicity or something that they will lose their popularity. Then after that, Vishnu came and settled everything. Then there were instructions by Maharaj Prithu. So this is all like a lot, you have to really dig into it. Uh, A lot of philosophy, a lot of, not exactly philosophy, but this is, like the Bhagavatam has everything. So one thing is instructions for government and leaders. So this is one of the biggest sections that, we find many examples with Yudhishthira, Parikshit, Ramachandra, so many great kings. But this Prithu section is, as far as my memory, has the most, example and advice and, how things should be done. What's a real leader? And we need to, more and more leaders. Leaders want to develop more leaders. We have so-called leaders in the world that they don't want anyone else manifest any kind of leadership qualities that cut them down for fear of competition. But that's not how it's supposed to be. So then the four Kumaras came, and Prithu um, greeted them, bowed down to them. He sat them in high seats, and he came dressed in a deerskin or something, and gave up all his royal paraphernalia and just took lessons from them, which is a very wonderful section. And then he goes back to Godhead. And his wife, Archie, she went with him. She also appeared at the same time. So, like I said, he just appeared out of the dead body of this Vena. It's not like a typical mother and father birth. It wasn't really a birth because he came already grown. There's just different ways that Krishna appears. So that's a quick summary of, what's coming. And so if you have, I hope you have a book, but can go to chapter 14. It's not a really long chapter, 30 verses. Okay, do you all have books?
Yes, Maharaj.
Or, yeah, because it's not easy to follow otherwise. Science says if you hear something and read it at the same time, then you remember much more. Okay, so I'm not, did a few short Bhakti Vaibhav. If you go to 14:1, I think we can, it's a huge amount, so but just right from the beginning. Maitreya continued, O Vidura, the great sages headed by Bhrigu were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect the interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and unregulated. So that, nowadays people, because there's so many bad government, they think of anarchy would be better. Anarchy means no government. But according to Vedas, it's better to have a bad king than no king. Better to have a bad government than no government. So the sages, they're always thinking of the welfare of everyone. And they called for the Queen Mother Suniti, and with her permission, they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. The ministers disagreed because they knew, but the sages did that. And so we see that always disagreements. It was known that Vena was very cruel. As soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard that he was the king, they became afraid. They hid themselves in like rats hide from snakes. So in that way, it was good to have him as a king because the thieves and rogues were afraid to function. But he wasn't a good king. When the king ascended to the throne, he became all powerful and he became too proud. By virtue of his false prestige, he considered himself to be greater than anyone, and he began to insult great personalities. So we can certainly, we've all experienced that, even within our ISKCON society. One has to be very careful. Pride is a demoniac quality. The Bible says, haughty spirit goes before a fall, and pride goes before destruction. Pride produces destruction. So we have to be very careful. If you do good, people are going to praise you. People are going to give you money, give you influence. And if remember that this is all Krishna's mercy and I'm just a servant, then even like Prabhupada could have unlimited influence, unlimited money and followers, but he never became proud. But Kali Yuga, we can become proud very quickly and think this is due to my great qualities and then be in big trouble. We've seen it happen, governments all over the world. But someone has to take the position. Someone has to take it. You can't just do nothing and try to protect your own creeper. You have to take responsibility and depend on Krishna. I know that we're depending on Krishna. So he's insulting great personalities. That's very dangerous. It says here that kings, because of mystic yoga practice, they generally got these 8 opulences. And they were also great sages. They didn't have them full, but they have all these cities, mystic cities, which people want today. They want mystic power. So he got so puffed up, he was like blind and he just causing trouble traveling all over. And he forbid the Brahmins to do any kind of yajna, and they couldn't give uh, charity or offer ghee even. He stopped all religious rituals. So there are governments like that still. So Prabhupada writes in verse 6, what was committed by King Vena many years ago is at present being carried out by atheistic governments all over the world. The world situation is so tense that any moment governments may issue declarations to stop religious rituals. Eventually, the world situation will become so degraded it will be impossible for pious men to live on this planet. Therefore, sane people should execute Krishna consciousness very seriously so that they can go back home, back to Godhead, without having to further suffer the miserable conditions predominant in this universe. Instruction for us. So the sages got together and concluded that it was too dangerous for the people of the world. So out of compassion, they began to talk amongst themselves because they're concerned about the welfare of the people. It should be understood, Prabhupada's writing, that sages, saintly persons, and devotees are not unconcerned with the people's welfare. Ordinary karmis are busy acquiring money for sense gratification, and ordinary gyanis are socially aloof when they speculate on liberation. But actual devotees and saintly persons are always anxious to see how the people can be made happy, both materially and spiritually. Therefore, the great sages began to consult one another on how to get out of this dangerous atmosphere created by King Venu. So there are also governments in the world that are trying to make everything very materially comfortable and opulent for the people. And some of them are liberal about allowing religious activities. Like in Dubai, they have a minister of happiness, Ministry of Happiness, and trying to plan how they can make people happy. So they have the most luxurious hotels and houses. They also have low price things for ordinary people. They're trying to make everybody happy. And they build a lot of mosques, try to promote their religion. Although we don't know if that's the best thing, but in the case of Venu, we've had kings like that in the world, dictators or whatever. But we're hoping that by the force of the Sankirtan movement, the atmosphere of the world is getting elevated and purified. And we get many places, where the leaders are really trying to do something for their people, like in Burkina Faso. And it's happening in other West African countries. The government is breaking away from just taking the money from the foreign companies and leaving the people to suffer. And the more we spread the holy name, the more we spread the scripture, then the more this atmosphere becomes purified and more people realize. So to save the state from this, they considered King Vena was not qualified. So they made their plan. His mother was a daughter of Yamaraj or something. So the sages had supported him to protect them from thieves and rogues, but he got out of hand. That happens a lot, in the world. Someone gets rich and then they see that they can do so many things and get away with it, and they lose their morality. So they tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. So they said they agreed, but by their power, they will burn him to ashes. So they didn't have to hire, assassins or anything like that. Uh, They just said mantras, and by the mantra, they killed him and burned him up. They tried to talk nice to him. They didn't show that they were angry. You want to give good advice? Please listen, and it'll be good for you. But we know Chandika Pandit said, you give good advice to a fool, they just become angry. So in a monarchy or in any government, they have ministers. But in a Vedic culture, the ministers were totally independent. They did not live off the government. They, um, they weren't just nowadays, at least in America, when you get a new president, then he appoints his ministers, and they're his friends that helped his campaign and helped him get elected. And they're only all interested in helping each other to advance their own financial position, not in helping the people. In this case, it's different. The Brahmanas were totally independent and they would give good advice. And they also had power. So here they exhibit their power that they can kill him. So every verse in the Bhagavatam is full of, so much understanding. And if we can keep these things in our mind, we'll be doing quite well. Those who live according to religious principles and who follow them by words, mind, body, and intelligence are elevated to the heavenly planets, which is devoid of all miseries. Being thus rid of that material influence, they achieve unlimited happiness. So they're giving him good advice, like we try to give everybody, and if we're lucky, people try to give us. That's why we have to read the Bhagavatam so we can get this good advice. That the only way we're going to get any, real happiness or good results is by following Krishna, taking guidance from the Bhagavatam. And they say, you should not be responsible for spoiling the spiritual life of the general people. If their spiritual life is spoiled because of your activities, you will certainly fall down from your opulent and royal position. Purport, history lesson. This is verse number 16. Formerly, in practically all parts of the world, there were monarchies, but gradually, as monarchy declined from the ideal life of religion to the godless life of sense gratification, monarchies all over the world were abolished. However, simply abolishing monarchy and replacing it with demon crazy is not sufficient unless the government men are religious and follow in the footsteps of great religious personalities. But text 17, now I'm going to ask somebody else to read. Who would like to read? Or do I just assign we don't have many there? First one I see is Rasavan. He's on the upper left-hand corner. Huh?
Yes.
Can you read text 17? Huh? Haribol?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
Yes. The duty of the pious king is described very nicely in this verse. His first and foremost duty is to give protection to the citizens from thieves and rogues, as well as from ministers who are no better than thieves and rogues. Formerly, ministers were appointed by the king and were not elected. Consequently, if the king was not very pious as thieves, the ministers would become thieves and rogues in exploit the innocent citizen. It is the king's duty to see that there is no increase of thieves and rogues either in the government secretariat or in the Department of Public Affairs. If a king cannot give protection to citizens from thieves and rogues, both in the government service and in public affairs, he has no right to elect tax from them. In other words, the king or the government that tax can levy tax from the citizen only if the king or government is able to give protection to the citizen from thieves and rogues. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 12:142, there is descriptions of those thieves and rubies in government service. As stated, Rajasi Bhakta Yanti, Vicha Rajaya, Supina, those class witches, people who are less than Sudras, representing themselves as kings, were recognizing their subjects and their subjects. On the other hand, well elevated, well cultivate the most pious practice. They practice evil habits and behave foolishly. The subjects will be like the rulers. The idea is that in the democratic days of Kali Yoga, the general population will fall down to the standard of Sudra, as stated Kalyo Sudra Sambhava. Practically, the whole population in the world will be Sudra. A Sudra is a four-class man who is only fit to work for those three higher societies.
Okay, I don't know what you're reading. Are you reading or just telling a summary?
I'm reading the 17.
Yeah. Okay, all right. You read the purport, right?
Yes, I read the purpose. The purpose that I'm reading.
Finished it? You finish it?
Almost.
Yeah, it's a long one. Okay,
Yes.
let's move on then. So then number 18.
Okay.
This event now, everybody, you're all leaders or, aspiring leaders, or it's not easy to be leaders in Kali Yuga because there's everyone wants to be a leader, no one wants to be a follower. But so there's a description of what a king is supposed to be. Someone else read? Just read the verse. Rastavan, are you there?
Maharaj, thank you very much. Peter said my way businesses. Okay, text 18. The king is supposed to be pious, in whose states and cities the general populace strictly observes the system of 8 social orders of Varna and Ashram, and where all citizens engage in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their particular occupations.
Okay,
Do
now
I read the
this is,
purport?
just a minute. This is, there's so much talk about Varnashram and people are criticizing we're not doing it. But this is generally what Prabhupada says about Varnashram. And all the citizens are worshiping the Supreme Lord by their particular occupation. People are doing what's their dharma, their natural work that they like to do and that they're good at. And everybody is worshiping Krishna by their own work. Bhagavad Gita says that also, you can become perfect. So this is what we're striving for. It's not that I'm a Brahmin and I decided you're a Sudra and, you're a Vaishya and you have to give me donations or something. That's not what Varnashram's all about. It's about everybody working and somehow worshiping Krishna by their occupation. If there's good Brahmanas, then Vaishyas are making money and supporting them, and the Kshatriyas are protecting them. The Sudras are building their houses and making, deity paraphernalia and everything. and everybody is worshiping Krishna that way. Okay, can read the purport also.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. The state's duty and the citizen's duty are very nicely explained in this verse. The activities of the government head or king, as well as the activities of the citizens, should be so directed that ultimately everyone engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king or government head is supposed to be the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is therefore supposed to see that all that things go on nicely and that the citizens are situated in the scientific social order comprised of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that unless people are educated or situated in the scientific social order comprised of 4 varnas, brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaisyas, and sudras, and 4 ashrams, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, society can never be considered real human society, nor can it make any advancement towards the ultimate goal of human life. It is the duty of the government to see that things go on in terms of Varna and Ashram, as stated herein. Bhagavan Yajya Purushaha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the Yajya Purusha, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 5:29. Bhuktaram Yajata Pasham, Krishna is the ultimate purpose of all sacrifice. He is also the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Therefore, he is known as Yajya Purusha. The word Yajya Purusha indicates Lord Vishnu or Krishna or any personality of Godhead in the category of Vishnu Tattva. In perfect human society, people are situated in the orders of Varna and Ashram and are engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu by their respective activities. Every citizen engaged in an occupation renders service by the resultant actions of his activities. That is the perfection of life, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 18:46. Yata pravriti bhutanam yena savam idam tatam swakamana tam abhyachya siddhim vidati manava. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Thus, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Shudras, and Vaisyas must execute their prescribed duties as these duties are stated in the Shastras. In this way, everyone can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The king or government head has to see that the citizens are thus engaged. In other words, the state of the government must not deviate from its duty by declaring that the state is a secular one, which has no interest in whether or not the people advance in Varnashram Dharma. Today, people engage in government service, and people who rule over the citizens have no respect for the Varnashram Dharma. They complacently feel that the state is secular. In such a government, no one can be happy. The people must follow the Varnashram Dharma, and the king must see that they are following it nicely. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol. So it's a big job. And one has to be the king has to be the servant of everyone else, the leader, you know, the head of the family, the head of the company or whatever it is, a football team, or, the leader has to be concerned about everyone else. The football coach has to see that people with the right talent are in the right positions, right? Who can be a goalkeeper, who can be a striker. I don't know all the different positions, but different people have different talents. And if everybody's satisfied with, trying to promote the team rather than himself, then everybody will be happy. Everybody will get promoted. If anybody is concerned just to promote themselves, then the team or the company or the family or the country, it doesn't work, right? It won't work. All right. Any comment from any of our wise sages there? Alika, are you there? Salika, any comment
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
on the
Not,
whole issue? What we read so far, lesson from it? How can we apply? People are always asking, how can I apply this in my life? This is not so, it's transcendental, but it's practical, anything?
well, we're just starting with the story, but two things I've picked is that leader must be himself pious to be identified and called a leader, because if he is not pious, if he does not have the adhika qualification, he cannot hold the position of a leader. The sages, they came together to chant the body of King Vena were qualified. That was why they were able to take the right decision. And so that's one lesson I'm picking. And another lesson is that in the text 20, which is talking about the giving an example of the state affairs, how the demigods who are presiding over the planet they always offer homage to the Supreme Personality of Godhead to get the strength. And in this way, we're learning that if one is given a position or he has a position of a leadership, he has to remember always to hold on to the instructions and worship the Supreme Lord or the Guru or Guru and Krishna to be able to continue to develop the strength to serve in whatever capacity he has. So in other words, the strength of a leader is derived from his loyalty and obedience to the spiritual master and Krishna. By worshiping the Guru and Krishna, he can develop the appropriate strength to be able to serve in the proper consciousness. So these are the two things I've picked so far.
Okay, very good. So I'll read a few. There's verse 19. O noble one, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, and the supersoul within everyone is worshipped, the Lord will be satisfied. So Prabhupada says it's a fact that the government's duty is to see that the Supreme Lord, is satisfied by the activities of the people, as well as by the activities of the government. there's no possibility of happiness if the government has no idea of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's the cause of everything. So we have some places in the world where the government is doing a very good job of keeping the people materially satisfied, so that they'll work hard but for sense gratification, not for spiritual. So ultimately, that's not so good, because when there's competition in the so-called capitalistic society, means it's nice competition. Everyone has a chance to make big, but oftentimes it's the cost of others. And then if somebody wins the competition, somebody else loses. And the government is not, they're just, there was a famous book called 1984, which was written in the 50s to predict the future. And the government said, all you need to control the people is beer and football. And then the people will be happy, they'll work hard, and they get their beer in a football match. And so that's unfortunately true in many cases. But that's not real happiness. The government can just control them and get them to work in the factories and fight in the wars and everything. So let's see what the sages, they're giving good advice. They're very angry, but they're coming cool-headed. Say the Supreme Person, this is 20. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the great demigods, controllers of personal affairs. When he's satisfied, nothing is impossible to achieve. For this reason, all the demigods, presiding deities of different planets, as well as the inhabitants of their planets, take great pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship. All Vedic civilization is summarized in this verse. All living entities, either on this planet or on other planets, have to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their respective duties. When he is satisfied, all the necessities of life are satisfied. In the Vedas, it is stated, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. From the Vedas, we understand that he's supplying everyone's necessities, and we can actually see that the lower animals, birds and bees, have no business or profession, yet they are not dying for want of food. Prabhupada said, they're not praying, oh Lord, give us our daily food. The elephant is getting like 45 kilos a day or something, plus so much water. But they don't pray, oh God, give me food, but he's giving it. So we don't need to pray for that either. We need to pray for, love of God and for service. And the duty of the government is to make sure that everybody is somehow, whatever they're doing is going towards the pleasure of the Lord, that they have a whole society that's just aimed toward pleasing the Supreme Lord. So they arrange yajnas, nowadays we want to arrange big kirtan parties. That's the biggest main yajna. And, try to get people to understand that they're not the body, but that can only be understood if they chant the holy name. Otherwise, you just feel theoretically no one is too attached. But if they take to chanting and they eat prasadam, read Bhagavad Gita, they'll get purified. So that's the duty of government. We can't, immediately force a government of different countries to do that, but within our own little societies, we can. Our leaders, our presidents, our GBC or whatever, we should be thinking, how to get everybody engaged in Christian service. Everything is very, very clear. Of course, Prabhupada purports always more or less put everything all in one purport. But these are especially. Human society has created an artificial kind of civilization, which makes one forgetful of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Modern society enable one to forget the Lord's mercy. Modern civilized man is always unhappy and in need of more things. People do not know that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Vishnu and satisfy him. They have taken this materialistic way of life as everything, and they've become captivated. And by materialistic activities, indeed, their leaders are always encouraging them to follow the path. And the general populace, being ignorant of the laws of God, are following their blind leaders down the path of unhappiness. In order to rectify this, the people should be trained in Krishna consciousness and act with the Varnashram system. The state should see that people are engaged. So that's happening in a few places in the world where the government's actually been doing a lot to help, we could say, our society, other religious societies also, to actually teach people. They're inviting devotees to teach in the schools. They're making, the Bhagavad Gita textbook. These things are happening. So let's continue. Now, the sages are still talking to the king in a nice way. And then we'll see the example of giving good advice to a fool. All right, who else do we have here? Kenneth Kamalaksha. Wow, Haribol. Wari. Can you read this verse? Kama?
Yes, so you, Maharaj.
Text 21.
Text 21. Dear King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with the predominating deities, is the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices in all planets. The Supreme Lord is the sum total of the three Vedas, the owner of everything, and the ultimate goal of all austerity. Therefore, your countrymen should engage in performing various sacrifices for your elevation. Indeed, you should always direct them towards the offering of sacrifices.
Where do you find that in the Bhagavad Gita? Who knows? 529? Who knows it? The peace formula.
Uttaram Yagnata Prasam Sarvaloki Maheshwara
Right.
Tridam Sant.
Here, the Bhagavatam will expand on the Bhagavad Gita. It's like Krishna was in a hurry, so he gave poets. But here it just opens it up a little more. So reading together the Gita, and of course Prabhupada, so many Gita slokas in the purports. Okay, who can read number 22? Who's so much noise? Where's that coming from? don't see the microphone open. Some kind of interference. Okay, let's see who else is there. Jyoti Swarup can read number 22.
Yes, Maharaj. When all the Brahmanas
23. Yeah.
23. King Vena replied, "You are at all experienced. It is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious and are accepting it as religious. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband who maintain you and are searching after some paramour to worship." Maharaj, can
What
I read
verse is
for
that?
uh,
What verse?
uh, 23?
Okay, that's a king.
Yeah.
King's
King Vena.
reply. So 22, saying that all the demigods, everybody should be doing yoga. So take that, apply that in our modern ISKCON society. Every Brahmana should be preaching. They should be performing yoga, Harinam yoga, Nam yoga. We make a show of the fire sacrifices and things, but that's only to attract people, so we can give them the real yoga, which is the holy name. Okay, so the king, Vena, read the purports, Jyoti.
Yes, Maharaj. King Vena was so foolish that he accused the saintly sage of being inexperienced like small children. In other words, he was accusing them of not having perfect knowledge. In this way, he could reject their advice and make accusation against them, comparing them to a woman who does not care for her husband, who maintain her but goes to satisfy a paramour who does not maintain her. The purpose of this simile is apparent. It is the duty of the Kshatriya to engage the Brahmanas in a different type of religious activities. And the king is supposed to be the maintainer of a Brahmanas. If the Brahmanas do not worship the king, but instead go to the demigods, they are as polluted as unchaste women.
So this is the demoniac king. Any good advice is like, you have no right to, you don't know what you're talking about, So I think we've all experienced people like that, and we've been like that also. Text 25. Those who out of gross ignorance do not worship the king, who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, experience happiness neither in this world nor in the world after death. So that's his point, that the king is Naradevata, he's supposed to be God on earth. So you have to worship the king, not God. For him, it's illegal to worship the Supreme Lord. I have seen that in our movement, very unfortunately, that husband, also it says the husband is God for the wife. So I've seen husbands demanding the wife to worship him and not worship the Lord, not go to the temple. Fathers expecting their children to worship them, but not worship God. That's completely crazy. But it's Kali Yuga, so things happen. And we have many examples in the Vedic history. Ravana, he considered himself to be the most worshipable personality. Okay, the next one. You are so much devoted to the demigods, but who are they? Your affection is just like the affection of an unchaste woman who neglects her married life and gives everything to her paramour. Wow. So he's just insulting the sages like anything. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, Vayu, the master of the air, Yama, the superintendent of death, the sun god, the director of rainfall, Kuvera, the treasurer, the moon god, and the predominant deity of the earth, Agni, the fire god, Varuna, the lord of the waters, and all others are great and competent to bestow benedictions or to curse. All abide in the body of the king. For this reason, the king is known as the reservoir of all the demigods, who are simply part and parcels of the king's body. So that's scriptural. These demons, they somehow they know scripture and they twist it and misuse it. So we have to, understand it's true. But then this king that's supposed to be the guru is also, the guru is Sarva Deva Maya Guru. The sum total of all the demigods is in the guru, but he has to act on that way. If other people should think that, but the king should think I'm the servant of all the people. I'm the servant of God. He should not think I am all these gods. This is a mistake. Purport. Who would like to read this purport? A good one. Who
There are
didn't
many
read yet?
demons.
Who didn't read? Chitraputra, the son of Chitra. Das.
There are many demons who think of themselves as the supreme and present themselves as the directors of the sun, moon, and other planets. This is all due to false pride. Similarly, King Vena developed the demonic mentality and presented himself as the supreme personality of Godhead. Such demons are numerous in this age of Kali, and all of them are condemned by great sages and saintly persons.
So the demons are dominating this type of demonic mentality in all different levels. So we have to make the planet more attractive for saintly people by having lots of yajnas, kirtan festivals everywhere. And that will attract more saintly type people to take birth. And then that will, and we see that happening. We have so many really amazing children in our movement. And amazing all kinds of people from all different ages. Krishna is sending, he's trying to, build a big, powerful government. Vena continued, for this reason, O Brahmanas, you should abandon your envy of me. So that's another thing. Demons always think people are envious of me. That's why they criticize my activities, even though they're doing really bad activities. They just say it's just envious people criticizing me. I've never done anything wrong. I'm perfect. In psychology now, they call it a psychopath. You know, anyone who criticized me is just an envious demon and should be annihilated, eliminated. By your ritual activities, you should worship me and offer me everything. If you are intelligent, you should know that there's no personality superior to me who can accept the first oblations. Wow. Complete opposite. The king is supposed to, be giving charity to the brahmanas. Like Ramachandra, he gave everything, his entire kingdom, everything he had to the brahmanas. So he's, really heavy. But, I've seen people like this in the world. If we hear the world news, we find many leaders like this, so-called leaders, but presidents, prime ministers, dictators, whatever you want to call them, that have this same mentality. And we see much small-time people, husbands, fathers, teachers, company presidents, all kinds of things like that. The same mentality. So Krishna's, the Bhagavatam is showing us not just philosophical statements, but examples of the demons, examples of the saintly people. So we can know, then we have to choose, what do I want to be? Do I want to be like Ravana? Do I want to be like Vena? Do I want to be like Prithu? So Krishna says throughout the Gita, there is no truth superior to him. Vena was imitating the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was also speaking out of false pride, presenting himself as the Supreme Lord. These are all characteristics of a demoniac person. Okay. Okay, who can read now? Number 29.
Let me read. The great sage
Chaitanya.
Maitreya continued.
Okay, go ahead.
The great sage Maitreya continued. Thus the king, who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path, became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the request of the great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned. Should I read the purport?
Yeah.
The demons certainly cannot have any faith in the words of authorities. In fact, they are always disrespectful to authorities. They manufacture their own religious principles and disobey great personalities like Vyasa, Narada, and even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. As soon as one disobeys authority, he immediately becomes very sinful and loses his good fortune. The king was so puffed up and impudent that he dared disrespect the great saintly personalities, and this brought him ruination. Hare Krishna.
Want to read another one?
Yes. Text 30. My dear Vidura, all good fortune unto you. The foolish king, who thought himself very learned, thus insulted the great sages. And the sages, being broken-hearted by the king's words, became very angry at him.
Go ahead.
Text 31. All the great sages immediately cried, kill him, kill him. He is a most dreadful, sinful person. If he lives, he will certainly turn the whole world into ashes in no time. Purport. Saintly persons are generally very kind to all kinds of living entities, but they are not unhappy when a serpent or a scorpion is killed. It is not good for saintly persons to kill, but they are encouraged to kill demons, who are exactly like serpents and scorpions. Therefore, all the saintly sages decided to kill King Vena, who was so dreadful and dangerous to all human society. We can appreciate the extent to which the saintly sages actually control the king. If the king or government become demonic, it is the duty of a saintly person to upset the government and replace it with deserving persons who follow the orders and instructions of saintly persons. 32. The
Yeah.
saintly sages continued, this impious, impudent man does not deserve to sit on the throne at all. He is so shameless that he even dared insult the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. One should not at any time tolerate blasphemy and insults against Lord Vishnu or his devotee. A devotee is generally very humble and meek, and he is reluctant to pick a quarrel with anyone, nor does he envy anyone. However, a pure devotee immediately becomes fiery with anger when he sees that Lord Vishnu or his devotee is insulted. This is a duty of a devotee. Although a devotee maintains an attitude of meekness and gentleness, it is a great fault on his part if he remains silent when the Lord or his devotee is blasphemed. 33. But for King Vena, who is simply inauspicious, who would blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy one is awarded all kinds of fortune and opulence. When human society, individually or collectively, becomes godless and blasphemes the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is certainly destined for ruination. Such a civilization invites all kinds of bad fortune due to not appreciating the mercy of the Lord. 34. The great
Okay.
sages, thus manifesting their covert anger, immediately decided to kill the king. King Vena was already as good as dead due to his blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, without using any weapons, the sages killed King Vena simply by high sounding words. 35. After all the sages returned to their respective hermitages, the mother of King Vena, Sunita, became very much aggrieved because of her son's death. She decided to preserve the dead body of her son by the application of certain ingredients and by chanting mantra yogina.
Okay. Let someone else read. So this is interesting. Like they preserved the body of Stalin in Russia. They put it in oil or something, and people say that they just wanted people go look at it. They want to make sure he's dead. You know, they don't believe he's dead. They want to know for sure. Okay, let's have someone else. Jyoti Swarup, you want to read again?
Yes, Maharaj, I will read. Once upon a time, the same saintly person, after taking their bath in the river Saraswati, began to perform their daily duties by offering oblation into the sacrificial fires. After this, sitting on the bank of the river, they began to talk about the transcendental person and his pastimes. In those days, there were various disturbances in the country that were creating a panic in society. Therefore, all the sages began to talk amongst themselves. Since the king is dead and there is no protector in the world, misfortune may befall the people in general on account of rogue and thieves. Purport. Whenever there is a disturbance in the state or a panic situation, the property and lives of the citizens become unsafe. This is caused by the unsurprising of various thieves and rogues. At such a time, it is to be understood that the ruler or the government is dead. All of this misfortune happened due to the death of King Vena. Thus, the saintly person become very anxious for the safety of the people in general. The conclusion is that even though saintly person have no business in political affair, they are always compassionate upon the people in general. Thus, even though they are always aloof from society out of mercy and compassion, they consider how the citizen can peacefully execute their ritual and follow the rules and regulation of Varnashram Dharma. That was the concern of these sages. In this age of Kali, everything is disturbed. Therefore, saintly persons should take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as recommended in the Shastras, both for spiritual and material prosperity. Everyone should devotedly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. 38. When the great sages were carrying on their discussion in this way, they saw a dust storm arising from all directions. This storm was caused by the running of thieves and rogues who were engaged in plundering the citizens. Purport. Thieves and rogues simply await some political upset in order to take the opportunity to plunder the people in general. To keep thieves and rogues inactive in their profession, a strong government is always required. Upon seeing the dust storm, the saintly person could understand that there were a great deal of irregularities due to the death of King Vena. Without government, the state was devoid of law and order, and consequently, there was a great uprising of murderers, thieves, and rogues who were plundering the riches of the people in general. Although the great sages could subdue the disturbances by their powers, just as they could kill the king, they considered it improper on their part to do so. Thus, they did not attempt to stop the disturbances. Purport. The saintly person and a great sages killed King Vena out of emergency, but they did not choose to take part in the government in order to subdue the uprising of thieves and rogues, which took place after the death of the king Vena. It is not the duty of Brahmanas and the saintly person to kill, although they may sometimes to do in this case of emergency. They could kill all these thieves and rogues by the power of their mantras, but they thought in it the duty of Kshatriya kings to do so. Thus, they reluctantly did not take part in the killing business. The great sages, yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, so that we had that same thing in Ram Lila, Krishna Lila, that the Brahmanas were being harassed, the rishis, by the demons, and they had the power. They could kill these demons, but they didn't want to use up their spiritual advancement for that purpose. So, they asked Ramachandra, you have to kill these demons, or Balaram, you have to kill this demon, and so that they would rather get killed than to use up their spiritual, advancement from all their tapasya to kill the demons. They created actually in history in the early beginning of Satya Yuga, everyone is a Paramahansa. But then as demons start to come, they had to create the Kshatriyas to protect the Brahmins. So they didn't want to kill, but they needed someone to. So they thought, what can we do now? They began to think that although a Brahmin is peaceful because he's equal to everyone, it's not his duty to neglect the humans. Then his spiritual power diminishes. It's like water kept in a cracked pot. That's an example. And also a Brahmin, because when they kept water in a clay pot, if it has a small crack, you can't even see it. And you fill it up and it looks all right, but you come back in the evening and the water's all out. So that example is given that if a Brahmana has knowledge, but he doesn't share it, if you don't preach, then whatever knowledge you have will leak out and you lose everything. So Brahmanas, the topmost section, they're mostly devotees. They are generally unaware of the happenings within the mature world because they're always busy in their activities for spiritual advancement. Nonetheless, when there's a calamity in human society, they cannot remain impartial. If they do not do something to relieve the distressed condition of human society, it is said that due to such neglect, their spiritual knowledge diminishes. Almost all the sages go to the Himalaya for their personal benefit. But Prahlad Maharaj said that he did not want liberation alone. He decided to wait until he was able to deliver all the fallen souls of the world. So here Prabhupada is, again, telling us this is for us. This is Kali Yuga, and it's the duty of every devotee to spread the holy name. In their elevated condition, the Brahmanas are called Vaishnavas. There are two types of Brahmins, Brahmana Pandit and Brahmana Vaishnava. Qualified Brahmana is naturally very learned, but when his learning is advanced in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes a Brahmana Vaishnava. Unless one becomes a Vaishnava, one's perfection of Brahminical culture is incomplete. Very strong statements. Because Kali Yuga Brahmanas often are very puffed up just by their birth in a Brahmin family, but they don't have any Brahmin qualities. Saintly persons considered very wisely that although King Vena was very sinful, he was born in a family descending from Dhruva Maharaj. Therefore, the semen in his family must be protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Keshava. As such, the sages wanted to take some steps to relieve the situation. For want of a king, everything was being disturbed. and turned to be topsy-turvy. And now, you know, in the world where there's so many bad kings, and like the American Revolution, because the king was quite bad, the British king, and then they wanted George Washington, who was their big general, they wanted him to become the king of America, but he refused. And they made the president, and he could only be in office for 8 years because he was afraid that if someone is the king, then there's, you know, theoretically they're in office for life and they have too much power, and that won't be good. So it sounds good, but then we've seen that the democracy goes crazy also. Because the people that appoint the king or the president are unqualified to know what a good king is. They'll appoint just a very rich man, or they like to see a very corrupt person, you know, a sinful person, and they can follow. So I'll read it again. Who can read text 42? We're finishing up the chapter.
I
have to
can
keep
try.
Chitraputra,
Yeah.
Tamal Krishna, you read in the beginning.
Yes,
Read
Maharaj.
again.
Yes. The
I can
sages.
read.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
please, I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay.
Text
The
42.
sages decided that the descendants of the family of the saintly king, anger, should not be stopped. For in this family, the semen was very powerful, and the children were prone to become devotees
Okay, purport.
of the Lord. All right, please, should I read the purport?
Yes. Read the purport. Please read the purport.
I think he's having a network challenge.
Okay, someone else read.
I can read pending where
Yeah.
it comes. The purport, text 42. The purport says the purity of hereditary succession is called Amoga Vriya.
The purity of heredity.
Welcome back.
Okay, go ahead.
Chitra Prabhu, you can go ahead. Scan again.
Yeah, simple activities become prominent in the family, become visible in the family. Maharaj Anga was very pure because of the purification process, purification of semen in the family of Maharaj Dhruva. However, his semen became contaminated in the association with his wife, Sunita, who happened to be the daughter of Death personified. Because of this polluted semen, King Vena was produced. This was a catastrophe in the family of Dhruva Maharaj. All the saintly persons and sages considered this point, and they decided to take action in this matter, as described in the following verses.
So generally the son takes the qualities of the mother. So the mother came from this bad side somehow or other. So Vena was like her. Keep going. Text 43.
Verse 43. After making a decision in the saintly persons and sages, chant the ties of the dead body of Kinvina with great force and according to a specific method. As a result of this chanting, a dwarf-like person was born from Kinvina's body.
What? Report.
Purport. Person was born by the chanting of the ties of Kinvina proves that is individual and body of the dead Kinvina, but it was not possible for them to bring Kinvina back to life. Kinvina was gone, and certainly he had taken another body. The saintly persons and sages were only concerned with the body of Vina because it was a result of the similar succession in the family of Maharaj Dhruva. Consequently, the ingredients by which another body could be produced were there in the body of King Vina. By a certain process, when the ties of the dead body were churned, another body came out. Although dead, the body of King Vina was preserved by drugs and by mantras chanted by King Vina's mother. In this way, the ingredients for the production of another body were there. When the body of the person named Bahuka came out of the dead body of King Vina, it was really not very astonishing. It was simply a question of knowing how to do it. From the semen of one body, another body is produced, and the life symptoms are visible due to the soul taking shelter of this body. One should not think that it was impossible for another body to come out of the dead body of Maharaj Vina. This was performed by the skillful action of the sages.
Wow. Okay. This person born from King Vena's thighs was named Bahuka, and his complexion was like a crow. All the limbs of his body were short, his arms and legs were short, and his jaws were big. His nose was flat, and his eyes were reddish. His hair is copper colored. He was very submissive and meek, and immediately after his birth, he bowed down and said, "What should I do?" Great sages says, "Please sit down." Thus, Nishada, the father of the Naishada race, was born. Purport is said in the Shastras that the head of the body represents the Brahmanas, the arms represent the Kshatriyas, and the abdomen represents the Vaishyas, and the legs, beginning with the thighs, represent the Shudras. The Sudras are sometimes called black or Krishna. The Brahmanas are called Shukla or white, and the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas are a mixture of black and white. However, those who are extraordinarily white are said to have skin produced out of white leprosy. It may be concluded that white or golden hue is the color of the higher caste, and black is the complexion of Sudras. But of course, we have nowadays none of these things can really
By 10
apply.
o'clock, it's quarter to
And Arjuna was blackish color, and Draupadi was
I'll
blackish.
be leaving any moment from now.
Okay, one more verse, and
Yes,
that's
it's
the end of
by
this
10
chapter.
o'clock. Just about 15 minutes from now.
Who can read this last verse? Who is it?
All right, James, still there. Okay.
Chitrakuta. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. After his Nishada's birth, he immediately took charge of all the resultant actions of King Vena's sinful activities. As such, this Nishada class are always engaged in sinful activities like stealing, plundering, and hunting. Consequently, they are only allowed to live in the hills and forests. Purport. The Nishadas are not allowed to live in cities and towns because they are sinful by nature. As such, their bodies are very ugly, and their occupations are also sinful. We should, however, note that even these sinful men, who are sometimes called Kirates, can be delivered from their sinful conditions of the topmost Vaishnava platform by the mercy of a pure devotee. Engagement in the transcendental loving devotional service of the Lord can make anyone, however sinful he may be, fit to return home back to Godhead. One has only to become free from all contamination by the process of devotional service. In this way, everyone can become to return home to Godhead. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 32. Mamhi pata vya pasrita yepi shu papa yona ya striyo vaishya stata sudras tepi yanti param gatim. O son of Preta, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Sudras, workers, can approach to the supreme destination. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 4th canto, 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Story of King Vena. Hare Krishna.
All right, so that's the end of that chapter, and almost the end of the time for today. It's quite an interesting chapter, and to understand the demoniac nature and the duties of government. Nowadays, the demoniac nature is very prominent. Everybody's a combination of demoniac and good qualities, and we have to try to suppress our demoniac tendencies by good association and help everybody to, expand their good qualities. Everybody has both. So, Salika, can you give a summary of the whole chapter? How can we apply it in our ISKCON society?
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for your costless mercy. And thank you for spending the time with us. The chapter 14 of the
4th canto.
4th canto, chapter 14, talking about the story of King Vena. Specifically, if we are looking at application of this story in our ISKCON movement, there is something very significant that towards the end of the reading that strikes my mind. Srila Prabhupada was coming from a very powerful lineage, just like King Vena. And until the time of Srila Prabhupada, there's been a continuity. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came at a time when there was a need, yada yada idam asya. So the Lord always comes at a time when there is so much of the challenges and it comes to rectify. So I was thinking also in our movement, Srila Prabhupada came powerfully from the powerful lineage of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu up to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And there wasn't so much of a challenges that as we see today. But we realized that the movement, having spread globally, naturally comes with its challenges. And there are so many discussions, topics going along among the devotee community. So looking at this story, I was asking myself a question in my mind. Should there be democracy in a spiritual organization like ISKCON? Because from observation, I see that most of the challenges we have has to do with the resolutions and decisions taken by the GBC who are representing Srila Prabhupada. And sometimes we find that there are divisions. But one very strong panacea or solution I see in these lessons that is derived from this chapter is that irrespective of whatever is going on, if one takes shelter of the acharyas and worship the Lord, there is always Krishna's presence to give solution. And I think that is the main suggestion I can provide for reading this chapter, that irrespective of whatever challenges that we were having in ISKCON, if we submit ourselves appropriately to Srila Prabhupada and the disciples who are present spiritual masters and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like the Lord, despite the challenges that came into the line of Dhruva Maharaj through King Vena, and properly captured the contamination of the semen. So despite whatever contamination that might be there in our ISKCON movement, if we follow these two strong recommendations in the texts and purports, by obediently following the orders of the spiritual master and worshiping the Supreme Lord, we will experience a new rebirth of ISKCON as it used to, and maybe greater than how it was when Srila Prabhupada was physically present with us. So that's my take off in this chapter. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, Maharaj.
Well, yeah, thank you. We have to, we have to think like that because we're growing like anything all over the world. More and more people are joining, more and more people know about Krishna, more people are reading Bhagavad Gita, but not enough, It's a small dent compared to the influence of the demons. But if we get our own government internally strong and we are agreeable that we're never going to agree exactly. We don't want that everybody's just a blind follower, but that we're all heading in the same direction and there may be many different ways to get there. And we need many different groups and but everybody helping each other also. Okay, I have to cut off now. Tomorrow, same time. Then I think, I don't know if this is the best time for you. I'm now at 3 hours later than Accra, or 2 hours later than Lagos. So it could be, according to whatever you want, different time. It could be later in the day and it's all right. So thank you very much. It's very good to see that devotees, we have so many new devotees going for Bhakti Shastra and so many devotees going on. To get together and hear the Bhagavatam is the most powerful thing to help us take over the world. And understand again and again, Prabhupada saying all Brahmanas should be doing yoga. The Kali Yuga, the yoga is Nam Sankirtan. Everybody should be doing that. One way or another, spreading the thinking of how to spread the holy name is the best way to control the mind. And we can, if we all have a loving spirit with each other, then we'll attract people. Everybody, you see some Christian churches, they They just promote family, good families, good families. People want that. You know, Bhakti Tirtha, so much about community, and Bhakti Vasudeva Swami now, many of his talks are about developing communities and using sonic therapy. He writes papers and presents them in the universities on sonic therapy, chanting the holy name. Sonic therapy. All right. He's a very clever speaker. Extremely
Thank you
clever.
very much, Maharaj. Thank you very much. Dandava Pranam. So on behalf of all the students and management, we want to register sincere gratitude to Maharaj for the sacrifice of time and energy to giving us his Sangha in this beautiful way. Please let us be consistent and let us be punctual in our attendance so
Thank
that
you.
Maharaj.
Tomorrow,
Thank you.
today I was very tired.
Solina
4 hours.
Samachara Swami ki.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Right.
Kintu Maharaj ki
Jai
jai.
Vanchakapataru
Or
Vyascha
pregnant.
Kripas Sindhubyas Evascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama His Holiness Krishna Maharaj ki jai. Bhakti Vedanta Chitan Prema Prabhu ki jai. All glories
Grace
are
His great Kamalasha Prabhu ki jai. His great Jyoti Swarup Prabhu ki jai. His great Rasavan Prabhu ki jai. His great Tama Krishna Prabhu ki jai. His great Yadunath Prabhu who has left before Maharaj lived ki jai. And also Chitraputra Prabhu who came later than everyone else ki jai. Thank you very much. Please. Tomorrow, please let us be prompt. I beg you, especially Chitra Putra Prabhu. Thank you. Today, don't forget you are youngest in age. We all senior you seriously in age. So if we are attending class with you, you have to come on time before everyone else, Prabhu. Please.
Prabhu, I understand you, but you always don't understand me. You always don't understand me. Salika Prabhu, please
Prabhu,
listen to
we
this.
don't want to understand because everybody is making sacrifice.
Please listen to this. You listen to this, Salika Prabhu. I am the only person in my temple now. I wake the deities up. I do gallant. Everybody, there's nobody. One pujari with me has traveled for funeral for 1 week now, since Sunday. Prabhu Chetaya Prema, you always don't understand me why. See, you don't know what is happening to me in my temple. I'm the one that do gallant. I'll do gallant, do deity greetings, cook prasad, and offer. And by the time I finish, it's 10 o'clock. It's only weekend I'm expecting some devotees to come. So please forgive me. It's not like I intentionally.
You better thank Krishna for this invitation you have.
This evening I'm going to cook prasad, then do Sundarati. I've been doing this for the past 1 week and put the deities to rest. I sleep at almost 9:30 in the evening.
Yes, that is the purification you need to go to the next stage. That is the purification you need.
So it's not intentional. I just want you to know that it's not intentional. It's not an intention. That's all.
You know what? You should come. You should on the camera. You should off the camera, but you should be there to be hearing. Okay, at the beginning. Okay.
I hear. Please. Okay. Thank you.
No compromise. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.